across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wonder why my mind keeps on spinning. This is how I live into me what's so.
Completely the story of what happened. It would just bring me to the point of today of realizing an ode to what a piece of paper can do. That somehow that process unlocked a different world that I was able to get into with the astral body. So needless to say, I didn't make any more talismans after that, but I always understood that there was a deep level of power that I still needed to figure out how did that even work. And as I started realizing and knowing more and more about metaphysics, I started seeing exactly how that works. It works on resonance. It worked on the intentions that I put in there, the fervor. Like I really believed actually that this was going to work. It's funny how I needed it to work. That's the reality of things. That's the intention. I need this to work. So, you know, if you're just back there as a skeptic, like, let me examine, it ain't going to work for you. But if you actually have some intentions for it to work, it starts forming itself accordingly, like a lot of the stuff that you're going to see today. So what happened is that I started realizing, and I came to the full knowledge of that there was a two-dimensional world, that there was a two-dimensional resonance. Just like we're in 3D, there's a 2D, and it's flat. But everything there, even though it's flat, it actually contains the energy and the essence and all of that. It's almost like it's a world. It's almost as if it's alive. So then I started thinking the other day, since I've known this knowledge already, and certain questions were presented and the wheels started turning, is it possible that I could be an image? And the reason why I got onto this is because I started I keep getting this effect sometimes where I feel like, some call it the fluoride stare, but I feel like that members of the reality that I'm around are sometimes glazed over. It's like I could be talking to them or trying to interact with them or in a store around them, and it just kind of appears like I can almost like wave my hand in front of their face and they would just be like almost like they're not real. And I was fascinated by this phenomenon. My brother Halo was here also, and he started bringing up again photography and the whole process of bringing a photo from the dark room into proper exposure and that process, right? And I had to chime in about that because I had studied that very deeply about the phosphorus and the different fluids that are used to bring those exposures back in, because I once thought that there was something magical maybe hidden within the process. You know, just through logic of trying to figure out what is this. And I find it so amazing that we are actually hyperdimensional in this group, because we started this project called the Projector, and it now brings us into realizing that the reason why a projector is so effective is because this is just an image. And what I mean by image is that everything here is just a copy of the original. And this is interesting because when you really think of it, since the original is everything combined, when you start splitting it up, all you do is you just get slides, layers, right? So in retrospect, what we're really running through is like a movie where a lot of the beings that we're encountering are actually really illusions themselves, because they haven't actually chose to be original, unique. They've chose to basically just be a slide. So let's dig into this a little bit more, because I have more proof that this is in fact what is going on. Now, the interesting thing about this, and the reason why it could become very liberating, is because once you understand the magic and once you know the process, then it can be undone. But if you're forever in the illusion, if you're forever on the other side of the mirror, if you're forever in this 2D world where it doesn't seem like nobody is really digging into the solutions too deep, like, are we going to get some results here or blow up or something? Because the other day, it was, I guess, what was that? Is that Saturday? Yeah, I guess Saturday for me. I got to look at my calendar now. I got a calendar of all the glorious activities, and I got a timeline because the chrono is really coming into effect, like the chronological aspects of mapping everything that's happening here. But it's just the awareness that this Friday, I believe, and I'm still looking for a calendar. I'm just like, I really don't obey the laws of time anymore. There was an eclipse, a lunar eclipse. And during that lunar eclipse here in Costa Rica, there were also two very strong earthquakes, just two very strong earthquakes. Didn't break anything, didn't, knock out the power even, but really strong. And it's like a sign, like it really like put me back into the scope of all I know, and was like shaking me up real quick, like, yo, wake up a little bit more, because you got to understand certain things from certain levels now. I need you to start asking yourself the questions. Turn the wheel. Let's turn the wheel of the projector and let's see this movie again that you're living in. So that way you can start playing these scenes back to yourself, so you can start knowing what's really important, because you need to get balanced. You need to get my. Now, Earth needs it bad too. Remember, Earth already got that, 23.6, whatever, 26.5, whatever degree wobble going on, right? And so she's already imbalance. She needs help with that, or he's already in, whatever floats your boat. I think for men, it's fascinating us to think that Earth is a woman and she needs our help. So maybe for women, if you think it's a man and it needs your help, that may float your boat. But either way, it's off kilter. So it needs more beings to actually speed up, because just like a top, when you speed up, your centrifugal force and all that so high, you're perfect. Right. And the more things that are doing that, the more it'll correct Earth. Now, of course, if there's imbalances, there's tons of imbalances going on, just because people are not really balancing out what they're doing either way. So because those imbalances, you know where the imbalances come from? It's Earth's bank book. Earth is just the worst at banking with the system that it's using now. It's not really recognizing the people that are actually doing something. It's not like the people who are giving us our food are getting paid the less. Like all of those things, the people who are sitting back like fat cats riding jet planes all day are doing absolutely nothing. They're like sitting on millions of dollars. The books are imbalanced. So that's the imbalance right there. So in retrospect, when you look at quantum solutions, you got to be able to get into frameworks like that, which we can. But the first thing to do is to get in your own framework. But also to realize some really deep knowledge here about the mysticism that we're being involved in. And I'll say it like that because a lot of people just reject the whole thing altogether and just are like, you know what, I'm not a part of this, this is Earth, or they come up with all sorts of dilemmas in their own consciousness. But the truth is, if you're standing here, it's going to affect you. So because it's going to affect all of us, then we must address it, the elephant in the room, and meaning, what is going on? So I'm elaborating in every detail of exactly what's happening. So because we were created in an image. Now let me explain this imagery to you, because some imagery is different. This is why when you start trying to find a unified system, you got some people working on 4, some people working on 7, some are on 9, some are on 13, some are on 20, some are on 26, some are on 72. It's like, whoa, everybody's jumping on different aspects and saying this is the system. And then when you say, what is the color to that? What is the frequency to that? What is the metal to that? They're like, it's this. And then you find when you look at another chart that it doesn't match. And then you even find that some of the energies that were on the top are now on the bottom. And then it's like, ugh. Does anybody know or have a manual to the body? No. All these geniuses, all these gurus, all of these spiritual teachers, these priests, all these, self-proclaimed prophets, none of them has sat down and agreed yet. What is the real unified system that we're on? Of course, like the cosmos. Why do we know it exists? Because if you notice the nature around you, you will notice the butterflies come out at a certain time. The bees come out, the trees get green, then they get brown, the clouds come in, the rain comes out. There's like a clock going on here. And it's so precise that if you measured the entire cycle and then map right to the day that it began again, you would know what a real year is. Maybe it's not 365 days. Maybe it's not even 360. Maybe it's more like 372.3. But nobody's actually trying to figure that out, because this is why they talked about, okay, well, cultism, like people were fascinated with occultism back in the past, and then they got all caught up in it, and then they doomed their own world, right? So that's kind of like some of the explanations. And I don't doubt that happened. But I will say for sure, if technology was then the alternative, so we removed all the spiritual stuff, and then we bought technology and we bought innovations so people can stare at their cell phones all day. Is that what we're talking about? This would be like if you're talking like an arc mason or something who's going to just brag about that all the rights that we have now were pretty much put in play by the Freemasons that built their structures around the world, their laws and their legal systems and their freedom and all that kind of stuff. So that's what they're going to want to get into you and drill into you about if you're asking them. But yet and still, they cannot explain to you why we were made in the image of something. Okay, because look at the wordplay. In the Bible, God says, let us make man in our own image, in our own likeness. Okay, so when you're doing in that kind of thing, and when you're speaking like that, that means that, because I told you that God in the Bible is actually a king, an old king. So it's not even like, you don't got to go as far as thinking you're talking to Saturn or thinking you're talking to Aurora or anything like that. You just need to think about an old deified king literally saying, I'm going to make them in my image. And what I'm going to do that is all written right here. And part of that is changing the language. Let us go down and confuse them and put enmity between them, change their language, right? So spells start going into work here. The next stage is that the image, like I'm going to make them like me, not like they are. So that means that anytime you start messing with images and projectors, you got to start controlling the days of the week. You got to start controlling the gods. You got to start controlling the math, the numbers, the letters. You got to start controlling those things before you can get in control of someone's real world, their real soul. So when you ask yourself today, though, have these institutions been able to accomplish this? Absolutely. When you watch, like, when you're a quantum thinker, you can do things like watch the Vietnam documentary on Netflix and watch how the same people that are operating under the Nazi regime flip over into the US and then start attacking people in Vietnam, then flip over into another country, start attacking. So you watch how this thing just flips through everything, taking on different names and using the same tactic, divide in the middle. It always cuts everything right in half first, that first blow, north to south. Notice how many places where you really have a north to south beef, like even North Korea, South Korea, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, North America, South America, and many tenses, all the norths and souths. Why is there always a beef? North India, South India, right? Like, why is there always these beefs? Why also do the darker people have a tendency to be in the south and the lighter people in the north, like it's on a caste system? Where does all that come from? It comes from pyramid geometry. It's geometric. It's geomancy. Because one of the mysteries that I just figured out was that all the pyramids that you see in the world right now, they are not original. They are not the original items that were on those areas that you're looking at. They are built on top of something. They are built on top of what would basically be for us our portals. Okay? Just keep going with this and realize what I'm bringing to you. Now, all the sacred sites in the world, as Freemasonry talks about, the sacred sites in the world, what they do is they try to get those sacred sites and either put temples or churches or something there because they know that there's an energy that people have been going to that area for the longest, right? Now, I'm going to rewind you through history. People have been going to temples for the longest. Now, many people, because they gotten into the external sun, they believe that the purpose was to go into the temple. It was always what was going into the temple that you should really look at, like people coming into the temple. But it was actually what was coming out of the temple. Because what you had is that temples only had priests in them. So you had priests going in, and then what was coming out in that priest was what was coming out of that portal. Okay? And I'll bring that to you one more time. People think about, let me go into church and get myself together. Let me go into the Buddhist temple and get myself together and pray and get myself spiritually fulfilled. Where that comes from is that in the old days, you would go to the sacred sites, and then when you would pray to your ancestors, they would feel you. Like there would be an old ancestor that wasn't using a physical body, be like, you know what, this lad's kind of like me. You know what, I'm going to jump into him. And they will become spirit-filled, their own ancestors. And then they will come out and they will have the big eyes for a minute. And then right when you walk out of the temple, there is the accoutrements, the Wa staff, the sphinxes, different things that you're going to need to deal with earth plane as it still stands right now. What we're not seeing because we're sometimes too many layers behind in the illusion. Okay? So continuously going with this to realize again that what is coming out of the temple is what is most necessary for us to see. We should also see that, okay, now let's say we try to go a little bit further. What is all of this? Why are people going to the temple? Why do they come out different? Why do they feel like that's a place that they can really connect with things? What is it? It's the womb. Okay. Duh. It's the womb itself. It's the place where souls come in and out. It's the hole, the chasm. And of course, you're laying by the hole, no telling what's going to happen. So people just started building these. It was like they started worshiping the hole. Basically, that's like the goddess worship in itself. It's like, this is where we all come in and this is where we go out. This is sacred. Let's build this. Let's build this. And that's how that started. That's how the acupuncture or the chakra points of the earth were found, because real souls were coming out of them. So now when you fast forward into the future, pyramids are on top of all the places souls come from. I don't have to be a genius to get what could happen to a soul if it comes out in a pyramid rather than coming out in its original design. It's probably going to come out thinking that something's on top of it, that is in this rat race trying to get to the top versus expanding, that, it's got to believe in something that's up there, that it's really down here since it started off at the beginning. It's going to, pyramidal shit basically is going to happen to that being, for better or for worse. Now, I have facts, evidence proving, like even in the Aztec country, they had an earthquake, right? Just recently, and it cracked open one of the pyramids, and then they found all these other rooms, and they're looking at us in the room. They're like, the rocks from here don't match at all this structure that's on top of it. And then it's happening in a lot of places around the world, that the pyramids that are built, they're built on top of our ancestors' reincarnation points.
You can easily bend the limbs, but when that tree gets deep rooted and grows, if you try to bend the limb, it'll break. And so you're looking at these baby boomers, and the coding and programming is so embedded in them for so many years that it's they've become rooted trees. They've grown and they've got stiff bark, and you can't really bend those limbs. They'll just snap. And a lot of them aren't ready for that information. So you have to just, when I tell people who always ask me, how do I get my family members to wake up, and how do I said, you just be the light. You just do what you do. Don't put pressure on them. Every now and then you may drop a gentle seed, and that's about it. And just let them look at your life and how you're moving. Eventually they may start to ask some questions. Right. And then you can answer the question and walk away. Don't go too deep again. Just a little bit at baby steps, a little bit at a time. Some of them will come along, some of them may not. Just be happy and that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're finding yourself. And then others will also see how you're moving and how you're living through this matrix. And then they will then begin to ask you questions. And some people will jump right on in with you, full blown. Some people will take time. It's a gradual process, but like you say, you can't overdo it.
Everybody's in their own game.
Yeah, exactly.
Lead that's by
example. Just lead by example. If it's not for you, it's not for you. If it's
right,
like,
and you know them by their fruit.
Yes. Right. Right.
It's like, did we miss that message? Like, people by their fruit, meaning their actions show you who they are.
Exactly.
So that whole I'm woke because you. So here it is. Let's go back. I was about to go full into that, which is okay. You got the information. You got all his knowledge. Neo, when he went, he got into the chair, got the thing plugged into him, and he was sitting there for hours just downloading information, right? And he said, and he told Morpheus, I know Kung Fu. Morpheus said what? Show me.
Right.
Oh, right. You know. Show me.
Exactly.
Right. It's the action that proves it.
So he went in that simulation again, showing me new Kung Fu. What did Morpheus do? He whipped his ass.
Yep. Beat him down.
He beat him down. He's training him the whole way. Yeah, you learn some information, but you can't apply it.
Until you apply that information, it's not real. It's not in this realm. It doesn't exist. It just exists in your mind.
Yes.
Until you apply it.
Absolutely. That happens to me all the time. People come to